Okay, so here we have an example of what we're creating today. It looks a wee bit untidy and messy, I know that. All I'm looking for you to do today is to be able to draw one cuboid like this, and to add in a roof detail, a sloped roof here, and some windows and doors to create a building. I'm going to come up here and go to New Sketch, just change this, I will save that, and here I have my canvas. Now the perspective guides are just here in blue, and you can unlock them using the padlock and move them about, or you can turn the visibility of them off. It's a wee bit confusing because you don't really know if you're in it or not. At least if you've got the blue lines on the page, that makes it a bit easier to see. So starting off on this layer down here, I'm going to draw in some construction lines, and I want this building to be about there, and we take the heights right back to the vanishing point. We can take the heights to the other vanishing point too. Now I'm doing this with my finger. I'm not using Apple pencils, so I've got a relative degree of accuracy here. Just draw a line down there, and this is going to be on this side here. We're going to have the right hand side of the building, and on this side we'll have the left hand side of the building. So if I put my perspective guides back on, that's that, fair enough. Alright, so we've sketched out the right hand side and the left hand side of our building. The detail I'm interested in adding right now is the pitched roof. So the pitched roof is a roof that is at an angle, and it'll look something like that here, like you would see on most houses, only we're going to do it in perspective. So put the perspective guides back on again, and then draw roughly halfway, draw a height line, and then you need to flick over it and use your ruler option. I'll let them in a minute. You need to flick over to your ruler option here, and then it's just a case of joining up the corner of your building to a point on that line. So line up again, and if you're using the ruler option here, it helps you draw straight lines even if it's with your finger. So what we can do next is bring the perspective guides back on, and we can take the point where these lines cross over back to the vanishing point, and then we will need to take a point just from this corner here. Let me see, right from here we need to take that point back to the opposite vanishing point, and the reason we do that is to give us a point in space where we can take this line back, and when they cross over, vertical line up, and then we can use this point with our ruler to join up like that. It does look a bit wonky, but that is the correct way that we're drawing this here, and it actually looks like the slope stays the same all the way down. The only thing that's left to do with this house is outline it, so I'm going to choose a nice black pen. I want to do this on a new layer above my construction lines so I can turn them off later, and I've got my pen selected, maybe a wee bit thick at 4, so I'll bring it down to 3 and put my perspective guides back on and begin outlining this shape. So we'll just take my time, starting off where I think of to start, dragging my finger across and up, and I'm not going to go anywhere near that roof section until I've done these shapes. And now I can put my ruler back on, drag it over here and line it up with the roof once. There's 2, and I've overshot these marks slightly because I can come back in with the ruler and tidy them up later. And there's 3, and then perspective guides back on, take it from the top point, that's too high up. You can always undo these things, maybe a bit too low, too high again, just right. There you go. Now you can come in with a ruler and tidy these things up. I forgot my front edge. Not with a ruler, sorry, with a rubber. and get rid of any lines that you don't need. I'm just going to go ahead and delete out most of these lines. Try and sneak up on it. If you find your fingers too big to get into the details, zoom in. You can tidy them up. No bother. Right. So that's the next step here. Whoops, I should probably rub that bit out too. Yeah. And also the bit at the top. Else it'll look like a big church. Okay. Now with perspective, with my construction lines off, I can see there I've got a pretty decent looking wee house. So back in the sketchbook, the only thing we need to add in now, things like windows and doors. I'm not going to go into all the illustration techniques that you could do with importing an image. It's pretty much just drawing in a window and a door. So a new layer above that one, let us draw using our pen and perspective guides back on, and we draw a line up, line back to the other vanishing point, a line down, there's a door, and the same thing here, there's a window. Easy peasy. Okay, something to make sure of is, this isn't to do with the details, but something to make sure of is that your lines are definitely touching or crossing over in some way. So if I can try and get this working fine. No, I won't. Oh, that's because it's not in perspective. Okay, I'll flick my ruler back on and line up the ruler. Take this line all the way down to there. That way, when you use your selection tool, you can colour things in easier. So to use the selection tool, you can just press on the wee selection box, that's the dashed rectangle with a black arrow, use the magic wand, and then press on a face. I'm going to do the roof first, but that doesn't do anything because I am outside. I'm not on that layer, so press back on the layer down here, press on the roof, and now I can use something like a big airbrush and a colour. Let's make this a sort of a nice grey slate roof. And then you can colour that in. Don't need to worry about neatness, you can come all the way out the lines. It's only going to colour in inside these dashed lines that you can see here. I think if I zoom in more, they don't become clearer, but hey ho. So it is important, like I said before, to make sure your lines cross over. I'll show you why that is right now. So on this layer, I'm going to select this face. Nope, okay. On my detail layer then, I'm going to select this face, and if I try and colour in now, it should be coming, yeah, it comes right outside the lines, and that's because I've got a gap. Let me deselect everything. I have a gap right here. So my perspective guide's back on. Let's make this nice and black again. Just draw that line up so it crosses over. And the same thing at the bottom here. Draw that line down. And now if I use my selection tool, I can select inside there. If I use the brush, the airbrush, I'm only colouring in what's inside there. And it does leave a bit of a border, but these are just things that we'll need to try and deal with. There's a nice window colour, and to make it look even more like glass, you could take a rubber and make sure it's pretty hard, sharp rubber, and just rub out. In fact, let's check what the flow does if it's down. Just rub out, 2 lines going across like that. So there we can still see some of the blue. Could possibly take that flow down a bit more. Let me take the flow of that rubber down to maybe 5. There you go. Nice wee bit of reflection on the window. So that's it for me, folks. I would like to see this rendered and or at least coloured in.